Catus, Maximus here. Let's talk about these Capri Stubby half-inch drive 6-point impact sockets. When I was looking for Stubby sockets, or half-inch drive I should say, really two brands initially came up, at least in the more reasonable price ranges. That'd be Capri and Sunex. The Capri actually beat out the Sunex, and I wasn't, super stoked on their ratchets, but I got those thin Capri wrenches. Thought those were actually pretty decent. So I decided to give a shot on these Stubby sockets. And what I mean by reasonably priced, 15-piece metric set, 10 through 24 millimeter was only 50 bucks. 40 bucks for the 11-piece fractional set, 3/8 through 1 inch. So they're actually pretty complete sets. For 90 bucks, that's a reasonable price for the sockets. And really, considering the cases, it's actually even more reasonable. Here they call their fluting wave drive, but Capri does spend some actual time and effort on their packaging, so that's why I'm showing this right here. Pretty decent. These did come shrink wrapped, so I did pull that off just so I could inspect them. These cases do stack, and I think that's a pretty neat idea. I complained about some other cases that wouldn't stand up. These do stand up. So you'd say, well, with sockets, why are they coming with cases? And I think this is more about, these would be tools for people who do want nice cases. That's the easiest way to put it. You can get the Sunexes. They're right about the same price, but they don't come in real nice cases. A lot of people, of course, are going to be putting these on socket strips and don't have a use for the case. But on the other side of that token, because of that, it's very difficult for the people who do actually want cases. Maybe they have service trucks or something like that, and the problem with socket strips is maybe they get beat around or something like that, so you could have some pretty nice cases. And the reason I mention that they are surprisingly nice is not just the pretty thick walls on them, but they actually silk screen the back. I like the wiseness to actually do an emboss, so you can look on the back of the case. They even put their lifetime warranty embossed onto the case, so they're really on it like that. Once again, they're stacking. Metal hinge or metal clasp, actually steel hinge pins in the back too, and they actually have two attachment points too on each half of the case, so they actually look pretty robust. And what I mean by quite a bit of the money you're spending is going on these cases is this particular hinge is actually something kind of special. The reason I mention that is, first off, it's spring loaded, so you never have that issue with the hinge beating into the case when you're trying to shut it. It is a metal hinge, once again spring loaded, but in addition to that, it actually has this little roller, has a little fork to keep it centered. So instead of just wearing out the bottom plastic piece here, just with, just a piece of metal. That's one of the problems with these polyethylene cases, is the fact that this, where it attached, wears out. So they put in a little plastic roller to attempt to get it to last a little bit longer. So to tell you the truth, this is one of the best plastic case clasps I've seen. These are superior to anything I've seen from Bosch, Milwaukee, Makita, DeWalt, or any of those other brands. The foam pads are just for shipping, but you certainly don't need them to keep the sockets organized. They don't fall out of the case. Anyway, sorry for all that talking. You're really here to see how tall they are, so let's get into that. Here's the 10 millimeter, and this is a Sunex 10 millimeter half-inch impact, and we can see that it is a lot shorter. It actually only comes up to this line here. If we do a bigger socket, say we have a good old Husky 24 millimeter impact, if we take the Capri, we can see that it's actually even, the 24 millimeter tends to be a little bit taller than the smaller sizes that we can see here. Yet all these Capri sockets are actually exactly the same height. So when you get in these larger sizes like the 24, the height difference is even more dramatic. And to make another point, I have one of these serpentine tools, but sometimes I use this as a very low profile kind of socket wrench is the easiest way to put it. So something like this with a 10 millimeter socket is still shorter than this Sunex socket is just by itself. So I could get this onto a fastener where I could not even physically put this socket by itself without a wrench. And so that's really the reason I like these Stubbies. They are impact. I'll probably end up using them a lot just with hand tools, but it is kind of nice. With them being impact, there may be some certain situations where the wall thickness, say, may be a little bit too thick in some situations, so you may end up still wanting some chrome versions. But I thought for most of the stuff I do, I think these will be just fine. I did cause some controversy with that Super Duty socket, excuse me, that Honda crank pulley socket. This thing here, and a bunch of people chided me, so I'll end up testing it out someday to see how it is. But I wasn't particularly impressed. But I did want to point out that this is probably one of the lightest weight and smallest half-inch drive 19mm impacts. This would be one of the largest and heaviest weight 19mm impacts. So when I do a test, it'll be from this socket against this socket. But I just wanted to show, you know, the disparity in sizing between these two sockets here. Anyway, I should also mention laser etching, which does wear off. And I actually would have been organizing my tools here and found a perfect example of, first, they do roll stamp these. So excellent, great. They're actually double marked, which is fine, both laser etching and the roll stamping. Laser etching by itself, I don't particularly like, and there's a big deal. This is a Gray's Pneumatic, very short, inch drive, super short extension. This only had laser etching on it. As you use these tools, this is extremely used to the point to where it's a lot of the magnesium phosphate or whatever it is has worn off. Then you just have no markings at all. It's really pretty frustrating. So any manufacturer that only does laser etching, I'm going to really critique, because it is super cheesy, and then you just can't end up being unable to read the markings. So I really do appreciate that they do roll stamping. Besides that, I can say it's pretty decent. I mean, these cases were custom designed just for these socket sets, and they do little touches. They did add Capri there just because they had extra space, but I do like the wisdom where, even though the fractional set's smaller than the metric, they made it so that the cases are the same size so that they can stack together properly. Another thing, besides just simply being shorter and giving you a little bit more access, maybe a touch more power on an impact wrench because they're lighter weight sockets, they do have another advantage, and that advantage is just the fact that they put the anvil closer to the head of the fastener, so it makes it more like using a box wrench, and so you just deliver your force more efficiently, and it feels like you're more directly connected to the fastener. You're not worried so much trying to make sure that you're holding the wrench on top or supporting the head to prevent it from rolling over. When you have really stubby sockets like this, you can just put it on the fastener and just break it, and it is just a non-issue. And that's one of the things I really like about these sockets, in addition to them being very compact. So I didn't have any. I had some stubbies and 1/4 inch and 3/8, but this will be my first stubbies and 1/2 inch, and I actually feel okay about these Capris. I guess one of my only real critiques is for somebody like me, I'm going to end up putting them on socket strips and not keeping the cases. So maybe if Capri just had a separate part number where you could order just the sockets by themselves, maybe even on a cheesy strip or something, and maybe save $10 or something like that, or a little bit when you don't want the cases, that would probably be the wisest thing Capri could do, because then I suspect that people would get just a little bit more sales, because it would bring the price down a little bit, and a lot of people are just after the sockets. But I do appreciate actually having some halfway decent cases for tools, especially for some of the people who do want that. These cases are going to be pretty hard to beat, to tell you the truth. They are surprisingly nice. Anyway, that was my short, overly wordy review of these Capri Stubby impact sockets, and really for $90 for a 26-piece set, once again in actual respectable cases, I think Capri's doing something here that's going to gain them more customers. That's the easiest way to put it. This is pretty competitive. Anyway, oh, and I should mention, I've been spending a bunch of time just trying some of these sockets. They also seem to be sized very well, pretty tight sizing. So additionally, bonus points to Capri, and bonus points for not having stubby socket sets that are just some cheesy little set that's like from 10 through 19 or something. At least they are relatively complete. I mean, you could have included an 8 and a 9 in the metric, and maybe a 5/16 and something in the 1/2 inch, but really, I think they did a pretty good job. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.